question is, what is it about this show? I mean, there's plenty of really well-written shows that have interesting characters. What is it about Lost that has gotten people crazy and so obsessed about it? And that's what I'd like to talk about tonight. So I would love to share a chapter in the book with you guys. Would that be cool?
Absolutely.
If you guys hear something? Okay. This kind of ties together everything I've been talking about, but probably in a much clearer way since this was edited by a professional. Unlike me right now, which cannot be edited. Okay. Can you guys all hear me, by the way? Okay. I've been throwing, this chapter is titled Myths in the Media. I've been throwing around this term myth a lot without having really explained what a myth is. In layman's terms, a myth is a story that attempts to explain the mysteries of the universe using characters and situations we can understand. For example, there are no myths involving radioactive quarks residing in the pseudostratified glandular columnar ciliated epithelial tissue of a dead Australopithecus afarensis doppelganger floating near Rigel Centaurus, because no one could understand that. Usually when we think of myths, we think of the stories of the ancient Greeks or of some primitive tribe somewhere in Africa. Truth is, we're still creating myths to explain our world to this very day, and incorporating the message of older ones into our modern ideas about life. Technically, our Bible, the good book that we base much of our culture on, fits the definition of myth. This isn't to say that it isn't true. Some myths, such as Robin Hood or King Arthur, may be based on true events. Just that it's a story that serves to explain why we're here, that features the exploits of heroes, villains, and supernatural beings. To be fair, the Quran, the Torah, and the Book of Mormon are also myths. Ironically, Dianetics is not a myth in the traditional sense, because it is a set of ideas and practices, not a story with gods and monsters. Then again, using another definition of myth, any invented story, idea, or concept, Dianetics would then be classified as a myth by everyone except for devout Scientologists. And just in their defense, I don't know if you guys know, but L. Ron Hubbard was actually a Pulp Fiction comic book writer before he got into this. And that's actually the defense of a lot of people that kind of belittle the whole religion, saying, how can this guy know what he was writing sci-fi stories, and then all of a sudden he's got this revelation about a religion? And I thought that too, and then I started thinking, wait a minute, that's kind of my whole thesis, that these people are the shaman, so maybe he was really onto something, so who knows. So, you know, as long as it gets us to the same place, it's fine. It's all good. Along with our religious texts, our fables, tall tales, fairy tales, comic book stories, and sci-fi movies are also myths. For example, Superman is most often thought of as a messianic myth. Krypton resident Jor-El, whose name in Hebrew can translate to light of God, sends his only son, Kal-El, or voice of God, to Earth so that he may be its savior. Sound familiar? Little Kal-El, whose name is native Kryptonian apparently translates to Star Child, is found by Martha and Jonathan, Mary and Joseph, Kent, who decide that their huge farmhouse is too small for the baby boy, so he's kept inside a barn, or a stable. So if Superman is a myth, what is its most recent adaptation, Superman Returns, telling us? Well, I'm going to have to give away a spoiler to reveal that. In the movie, we discover that Superman, the modern mythological representation of Jesus, had a child. What's particularly interesting about this revelation is that it comes at a time when, thanks to the Da Vinci Code, mankind is beginning to believe that perhaps Jesus himself actually had a child. If Jesus had a child, then logically, his mythological equivalent should have one too, hence Superman Jr. Of course, Jesus himself is also a myth, whether he was real or not, sort of like Robin Hood. So what does it mean that all these godlike characters are having children? It means that we too are God. If Jesus had any offspring, then there could be millions of people in the world with a biological link to him. This could make any one of us a part of God, or whatever your idea of an all-powerful energy source happens to be. This is the message our myths are trying to convey. We are coming to the discovery that we are all God and therefore have God's powers. Of course, anyone who's read the Bible carefully enough knows that this is already in there when it says that God made us in his own image, meaning that God made us just like him. It also says that God is everywhere, in everything, which would include us. So our myths are not contradicting each other. They are simply clarifying themselves through enhancements of our familiar myths. And the message they are now sending out is that we are all God, all of us. That's why there are so many movies and TV shows out recently about ordinary people with amazing superpowers. They're trying to tell us that we all have amazing power inside of ourselves, a power that will become more and more apparent as we evolve. From NBC's Heroes to USA Network's The 4400 to the popular X-Men movies to M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable to dozens more, that's one I forgot. No longer is the superhero some mysterious being separated from us by a secret disguise. Even the second Spider-Man movie had the amazing web-slinger lose his mask not once, but 3 times. Once to his enemy, once to his lover, and once to the general public. Our God has been unmasked, and he turns out to be one of us. Another clue, what if God was one of us, asked singer-songwriter Joan Osborne. No, the superhero is not going to save us. We are the superhero, and we are meant to save ourselves. The Messiah isn't coming. We are the Messiah. I think it's so interesting with the whole Obama thing that came out right after this. I mean, it's based on, wisdom that's years old, but he used it kind of as calling card, and it fit in with this perfectly, so I love that. It's kind of like a confirmation from the universe, I think. The idea of humanity having a savior has been at the forefront of our collective mythology for millennia, but now, this theme is being clarified with the notion that we must all work together to achieve our own salvation. In fact, Nickelback's song, Hero, featured in the first Spider-Man film, illustrated this theme perfectly. This is the lyric. And they say that a hero can save us. I'm not going to stand here and wait. No need to wait for the hero or Messiah, because we can all be heroes. Interestingly, because so many people are used to this hero as savior myth, many misinterpreted the lyrics as, and they say that a hero can save us, I'm not going to stand in the way. I think that's really interesting that a lot of people hear that. Someone really ought to conduct a psychological study by playing the song to a group of people to see if those who are waiting for a Messiah are more likely to interpret the lyrics as, I'm not going to stand in the way, while those who believe we must save ourselves here, I'm not going to stand here and wait. Amazing how the mind causes us to see and hear things according to our own preconceived beliefs. And there's a big clue as to what's going on with Lost, but we'll get to that later. Another movie-themed song that plays off the ordinary person as savior myth is the Wallflower version of Heroes, which was used in the 1998 Godzilla film. We can be heroes just for one day, the lyrics suggest. While the song was originally recorded in the 1970s by David Bowie as a classic forbidden love story, pairing the remake with the new Godzilla enabled it to take on a different meaning, that of everyone joining together to help save the world. Of course, it is entirely possible that Bowie was tapping into this meaning with his original version as well. It should be no surprise to anyone that Bowie has always been more than slightly ahead of his time. So if myths in the media are telling us that we are our own last hope for survival, how exactly are we to go about saving ourselves? It's one thing to tell us what we have to do, but it's another thing entirely to tell us how. Luckily, once again, media myths provide an answer. According to many current movies, books, and TV shows, each of us has a unique role to play in bringing about the world's salvation. Each of us has a special gift, something we're good at, something we feel down deep inside, something that's waiting to be called upon so that it might lead us to our destiny. A superpower, if you will. This theme is yet another mythological message of the superpower shows and movies previously mentioned, especially Heroes, and is showing up in other places as well. If you're interested to know what your gift might be and how you might use it for the betterment of humanity, you just might want to look at M. Night Shyamalan's Lady in the Water for inspiration. Did anyone here see that movie? Besides my brother? And me? It's so underrated. It really was a great movie. The film's universal message that each of us plays an important role in the destiny of our world is illustrated using the microcosm of a Philadelphia apartment complex to play out the story. Incidentally, the idea of using an isolated location to represent the world at large is common to many myths, as we discovered earlier with Lost. Here, Shyamalan expertly uses the apartment complex with its Asian, African-American, Latino, Indian, and Caucasian residents to serve as an analogy for our multicultural planet. Personally, I feel that Mr. Shyamalan is the severely underappreciated leading modern-day shaman of America. He is someone who can take the message of the collective unconsciousness and translate it for the masses. Obviously, he's touched many people since his movies continue to do well, despite the fact that reviewers have hated every one of them that's been released since The Sixth Sense. Regardless of the critics, I will defend my stance in Mr. Knight's position as America's head shaman, simply by pointing out that this title is hidden in his name, M. Night Shyamalan. And I spelled it out here, but trust me, it is actually written in his name. There are no coincidences, as any Lost fan can tell you. Speaking of which, what does any of this have to do with Lost? I was just getting to that. Well, you guys will have to buy the book to find out that part. I do want to at least give you guys a taste, because the whole myth of Lost books, basically what I did was I looked at all the mysteries and I came up with one simple solution that explained every one of them. And then I took it a step further and I explained, how do these mysteries relate to your life? What is the smoke monster in the real world? What are the whispers? What are the numbers? What is the ghost? What is everything that's happening? What are all these? Everyone's connected. Everything that's in there, I relate it to our lives and basically make it relevant to say, why is everyone so obsessed with this show? Because I think on a subliminal level, we're seeing that it's got real wisdom, real information that it's giving us.